All right, so this is really important. I was asking just kind of our staff, like, hey, what do you think parents need to hear? And one of the things we talked about is just resiliency in our kids. And it's a little uncomfortable because we feel like we do it well, I think. But then when I was like looking at some of these things, I was like, ooh, and that's for me as well. Like, oh, I think I can get a little bit better in that. So being resilient, that is just the ability to adapt well to adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or even significant sources of stress. We can help our children manage the stress and feelings of anxiety. That does not mean that they're not going to experience the difficulty or distress. It just means we're going to teach them how to sit in it. The other thing is resilient kids are adaptable problem solvers. That is one of the things, I will be honest, that we see as in staff is our kids struggle with problem solving. They face unfamiliar or tough situations and strive to find practical solutions. That's those that we can help with the resilience. So why does it matter? Well, because it gives them their ability to gain their own confidence. They learn how to problem solve on their own. Now, this is important. That's why Bill Star. However, if they have a parent or a guardian that usually solves every problem for them, this robs them of the opportunity to solve their own problems. Okay, so when we solve everything for them, they don't have to actually learn how to problem solve on their own. Again, they're not born with resiliency. That's not something they're born, that is something that is taught. And as parents, we need to be able to equip our parents with the skills to sit in the unexpected. And that goes against culture, right? That goes against what we've been taught. We've been taught to, oh my goodness, if they are feeling something, help them and work through that. Which not saying you won't when they're younger, but as we are teens now, we have to start thinking about they're gonna leave us, right? And we want them to have those skills when they get to college to sit in it, when they get to places that aren't comfortable, when they get to a job and they're not gonna love every single person they work with. How do we prepare them for that? We've become a culture of trying to make our kids comfortable. We as parents are trying to stay one set of everything our kids are going to run into. You've heard of helicopter parents, but now sometimes we call it lawnmower parents, right? Because we mow everything out of the way for them so they don't have to experience anything. The problem is life doesn't work that way. This is a hard reality, but it's so true. So a lot of the things that I'm quoting in today's comes from Lynn Lyons. She's a social worker, and these are some of the things that she's worked or that she's written, and I have her information there. This is another thing that was kind of like oh man, this slapped me in the face too. Anxious parents often struggle to let their children tolerate uncertainty simply because they have difficulty tolerating it themselves. So again, that was an eye-opener to me, like, oh, do I need to evaluate, am I anxious in some things? Anxious parents try to protect their kids and shield them from extra pain because they know what it feels like, right? So we don't want our kids to feel it. While it might not be the easiest for them, in order for our kids to learn how to handle uncertainty, we have got to teach them how to problem solve. All children by nature are anti-fragile, right? This is an important thing too. Just as the immune system must be exposed to germs, trees have to be exposed to wind in order to grow. Children require exposures to setbacks, failures, shocks, and stumbles in order to develop that strength and that self-reliance. When we overprotect them, that interferes with their developmental stages and it renders them more fragile and fearful as adults. And I know that is not comfortable because again, we feel like parents were doing the right thing. We feel like we are helping, which we can be, but when we take away everything for them where they don't have to think about it, that doesn't set them up for success. And again, that's uncomfortable. I get it. So what do we do as parents? Well, first of all, we don't accommodate every need. According to Lyons, whenever we try to provide certainty and comfort, we're getting in the way of our children being able to develop their own problem solving and mastery. So overprotecting kids only fuels their anxiety. I think we need to remember that. Again, it feels good. It feels good in the moment. But when we overprotect them, we're actually leading to their anxiety. Teach them how to problem solve, okay? Like we may, as an anxious parent, we may want to, like let's say that they don't want to go to sleepaway camp. They've never been away from mom for more than a day, so we don't want them to. We might want to be like, okay, well, you don't have to go, right? Or this is another one. An anxious parent may want to let their kid stay home from their kid doing a presentation. We get that a lot, right? Well, they have a presentation, so I just decided to keep them home today. While that gives you relief, and it probably gives the kid the relief, it sends the unspoken message that you don't trust them. You don't trust them to actually figure it out and navigate those changes. We need to teach them how to handle challenges. If we could engage our child in figuring out how to work through the uncomfortableness, they'll learn how to figure out what works and what does not work. That's an incredible learning tool. And again, we call it avoidance in that right here, them not having to do the things they don't want to do. It feels good in the moment. But the more we do that, the more they become used to that and they don't want to do the hard things. And that's not real life. Unfortunately, you work in the real world. Like there's things I don't want to do sometimes, like presenting. I love presenting, but sometimes it makes me super uncomfortable, but I have to do it, right? So we have to teach them those things of you just have to fight through some of it. When we avoiding all risks, as parents, of course we want to keep our kids safe, but while our risks are lower, we can let them suffer through some of the consequences. If we don't allow them to experience risk, they don't learn that resiliency. Giving them the age-appropriate freedom helps them learn their limits. This is why it's a little, I have a picture of it next. Okay, no? Let me go to the picture and I'll come back. There it is, okay. So this was incredible. Like, there's a book, and I have it listed at the end. It's called The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring for Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. Okay, that talks about the phone. And y'all know I get passionate when I'm talking about the phone and social media and all that stuff. But he made a really good point in this. He was talking about even like, and I won't say my age, but these are some of the things we grew up with. When's the last time you saw a merry-go-round? You don't see merry-go-rounds anymore. You sure don't see seesaws anymore, right? But they talked about like what that actually taught us. Like the risk is low, you're gonna fall off. But I grew up with all brothers. And so I learned how to read their face and when they were about to jump off, right? And I knew my feet were like right there ready to jump off. These are the skills I learned on a merry-go-round. If you hold on too long, you're gonna fall, right? Or if you get off and you've been on it, you're gonna get dizzy and you may fall. These are things we learn. I know they seem a little small, but they're problem solving. We learn these skills. And guess what? If we fell off, yeah, we got a cut or we hurt or our tailbone hurt, but you learned, right? These are today's, right? We've got everything padded. We've got the color. We've got to make sure it's not up too far. It's sure not metal because you're not going to burn your behind, right? Which that was another lesson you learned too. Like all these little things that we learn. I know it sounds corny, but just from the old school play. I remember back at my elementary, we had two huge poles that were probably 50 feet in the air that you climbed. I'm sure somebody fell off, right? But it wasn't the end of the world. You learned the skills that we protect so much. So I just thought it was so interesting. He talks about play-based growing up, which a lot of us, if you're in my age, 20s, we had play-based. Well, it shaped our brain differently. Our kids are phone-based. They're not play-based. And so it changes everything. Anyway, that is an incredibly amazing book. And again, it's at the end. And I could do a whole thing about that just because I think it's so important. But they talk about unstructured, independent play. They don't have that anymore. And that's actually contributed to a lot of our mental health. They don't get that exposure to the manageable risks, climbing trees, exploring neighborhoods. We can't do that anymore, right? Solving peer conflicts without adult intervention. That prevents them from gaining their resilience, their self-confidence, and the ability to cope with challenges. The risk deprivation leaves children ill-equipped to handle stress and uncertainty, leading to increased anxiety and other mental health issues. And they tie this in again to societal changes and just what it's done to our learning, our trial and error. It's fascinating, probably because, again, I'm passionate about that. But I just thought that was an interesting part. So again, if we eliminate all risk, we're not giving them the opportunity to learn how. I also thought this was another incredible or interesting one. Instead of asking why, so like let's say your kid leaves their bike out in the rain, and again, ours are in high school, but they leave something out, and your first thought is, why would you do that? I like how they flip this to how, right? Okay, well, you left it out in the rain and now it's rusted. How are you going to fix that? Like they may go research how to fix their own chain or how much money they need to save. Asking them, like when they're like, I don't want to go to school. I'm really having a rough day, or I'm really tired. Hey, how are you going to get yourself out of bed when you're actually feeling really cozy and like not wanting to go to school? Hey, how are you going to handle the noise on the bus with those boys that bother you? This is a big one. How are you going to handle when you fail a test because you didn't have time to study? Not trying to do everything for them. How are they going to figure it out? So that was an interesting point, I thought. Another thing is not providing all the answers. This is hard too, and I will admit this, for a parent, this is hard. Like for instance, if my kid, she hates shots. So if she's saying, am I going to get a shot? Instead of like saying, oh, I don't know, saying, I don't know, you might, and let's talk, how are you going to sit through this? Like, what are you going to do? Or if they say, your kid says, I'm just going to fail my test today, instead of saying, no, you aren't, honey, you're going to do great. That's me, right? Instead of saying that, saying, I don't know, well, what if you do fail? How are you going to handle that? Can I teach them, hey, you know what? That's a great time to talk to your teacher and ask, hey, what am I missing here? Or when do you have tutorials? When can I come in? Hey, can I stay like 5 minutes late just so I can make sure I'm understanding it? You're teaching them those skills of what are they going to do to handle that. Another thing is, let's say that they're like, I don't want to go to college. I'm not going to know anybody. It's going to be miserable. Instead of saying, you know what? Hey, sometimes freshmen don't like their classes their first year. How are we going to deal with that if that's you? Again, you're asking, how are you going to, instead of providing all the answers. This is another one I thought, y'all aren't going to like me, but let your kids make those mistakes. Especially while, like I said, the risks are low right now. They're still under your roof. You would much rather them make a mistake now than when they get older and they don't know what to do. Again, failure is not the end of the world. That's where we get to figure out what to do next. Let kids mess up. That's hard, especially as we are in a very competitive area. You know this. But let them fail the test, because that's going to teach them what do they have to do next time. Yes, obviously we remind our kids to, like, you know, stick with deadlines and things like that, but let's say they don't get something turned in and they get points taken off. Maybe that'll actually help them the next time think about, okay, I need to make my time management a little bit better. Let them see the consequences of their actions. That is not something we are comfortable with as parents. Again, let's say that your kid's like, I just don't want to go to practice tonight. I've had too much, and we do. Our kids have too much on their plates. They do. But let's say that they're like, I don't want to go to practice, and your first thought is, no. Well, what would happen if you let them not go to practice, and guess what? They don't get to play the next game because they didn't want to go. I know that is like, some of your all skin's crawling right now because you're like, no, I paid too much. I get it. But that's just a thought, right? Let them sit through it. This is a huge one coming from the counseling world. Help them manage their emotions, okay? Again, back to that phone. 9 times out of 10, the reason they turn to this so much is because they don't have to sit in what they're feeling, okay? Emotional intelligence and self-regulation, those are huge. If we can teach our kids, it's okay to feel what you are feeling. It is okay to feel those big emotions. It's okay that you lost your game and you're really upset. It's okay that someone stole your ice cream if you have siblings, right? Or they have siblings. We can teach them that it's okay, but we've got to help them think through, what are you going to do next? Okay, this is another one that I was like, ooh, that's why I had to kind of Kids learn very quickly which powerful emotions get them what they want. Parents have got to learn how to ride our emotions as well, right? So our kids have learned if they show you that they are super, super, super angry or they are super, super, super sad, sometimes it can get them what they're wanting, if that makes sense. They don't want to go to school, right? Because they do have a presentation or they do have a test that they don't feel prepared for. Well, if they throw a fit, sometimes we give into it, right? Instead, we might tell our kid, I understand how you could feel that way, and I'd feel the same way if I were in your shoes, but hey, let's figure out what we're gonna do next. Again, if they throw a tantrum, be clear about what behavior is appropriate and inappropriate. You might say, I am sorry you're feeling this way, but hey, you slamming the door or you rolling your eyes or whatever, that's not okay. Okay, so just walking them through, it's okay. And that's what I tell my own kiddo all the time. You get to feel whatever emotion you're feeling. You're angry, you're upset with me, it's okay. But you don't get to blah, 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 blah. So set those expectations. Model adaptability. Okay, you would be surprised of what we learn from our parents, right? So when I ask my students, well, how do your parents handle X, Y, or Z, or how do your parents handle? I get some interesting answers, right? And this is just for me as well, like remaining calm and consistent. I always tell, this is being recorded, I hope my husband never sees this, but I always tell my husband when like we're talking to our kiddo and I'm like, you're arguing with a drunk cat. Like, stop trying to talk to her right now. She is not listening, she is not regulated, she's not hearing anything you say. So our kids have to learn and model it from us too. If we're not calm and if we're not in a good headspace, it's not the right time to talk to them. So model that. Say, hey, you know what? Actually, I can tell I'm starting to get really frustrated. Can we table this and can we come back in 45 minutes? Or can we talk about this in the morning? Or can we talk about it after I eat? That's my big thing. Sometimes I just need to eat and then I can talk. But model that. Another thing is, and this is hard too, model messing up. Hey, I am so sorry. Like yesterday I handled that wrong. Or I really screwed up. Can we talk about how I could handle that differently or how, next time maybe a different way that both of us could have handled it? These are the things that are gonna help our kids learn resiliency as well, right? And help them navigate those trials that are gonna happen. These things are gonna happen. You are going to have stress in your life. It's unavoidable. How do we teach them to best handle it? So this is a fancy counseling word. If your kids are in counseling, they may have heard this. DBT is something I use a lot, especially with our teens. Dialectical behavior therapy, big fancy word. And it sits on 4 pillars that we talk about. The biggest one that I work with my teens here is distress tolerance. And y'all, this will come out, so you'll get this. But that is sitting in the yuck. Our kids are not good at this, okay? We're not good at it, but we have, as adults, our part of our brain that makes those logical decisions is developed. Our kids is not. So that refers to a person, their perceived capacity to withstand negative, emotional, and or aversive states, and the behavioral act of withstanding distressing internal states elicited by some type of stressor. Basically, I say it is sitting in the yuck, okay? And again, our kids do not like this. We don't like it, but we've learned how to work through it. But that's why our kids, as soon as they feel like uncomfortable, what do? Like I said, they go to this. So teaching our kids this is crucial because it equips them with the coping mechanisms that they're gonna need without resorting to unhealthy behaviors. Side note, and I could do a whole nother one on this one, but one of the things that we have seen increase significantly since COVID is self-harm, is our students cutting. The reason that I see a lot of this is because they resort to that because it gives them some sort of release, because they don't like to sit in the, oh my gosh, this is not comfortable. Everybody else was invited to that party and I wasn't. Oh, it is all over Instagram that so-and-so is hanging out with so-and-so, or look at them. They are so much more thin than I could ever. All these things that they do, they don't like that feeling. So a lot of times they go to the unhealthy behaviors. That's also why we've seen such an increase in vaping. Just letting you know that as well. So teaching them, it helps them navigate these difficult moments. It helps them accept reality. That's another thing we work with in DBT is accepting reality, but I just went blank on the actual term that we use. But, and it teaches them how to sit with it. So again, if you want to Google distress tolerance, there's all kinds of things that'll come up. But some of the things that I wanted to talk to you about, we're going to talk about on this next one, is some of the strategies for that. There's a lot of things that kind of go underneath it, but this is like the two biggest ones that I teach is accepts. Okay, and that's where they can't, when they are sitting in something that is super uncomfortable and they just don't want to deal with it. Okay, activities, contributing, comparison, emotions, pushing, thoughts, and sensations. Again, if you Google this, you'll get all kinds of things, and you will get a copy of these slides. But it basically just says, okay, what can we do instead? So activities, what can you do to keep your mind busy? Something that's going to require concentration, drawing, listening to music, starting a project. I added one of the pages that's in the actual, the lady that wrote the whole DBT thing, but you can tell it's a little dated because rent movies, watch TV. Yes, Mom, take me to Blockbuster. No, but it does have some more things on there that gave you more activities that I thought you might realize that you could do with your kids. Okay, so that's something that's going to take their mind off of what they're sitting in. Let's say they broke up with a boyfriend or girlfriend and they just can't get over it. Try some of these things with them. Okay, contributing, focus on others, turning it in from the inside to the outside. Okay, can they volunteer? Can they send a text to their grandma? Can they write a letter to their grandpa? Anything. Can they take cookies to the neighbor? Can they help their younger sibling with homework? Again, it's just taking the focus off of themselves onto somebody else. Comparison, reminding themselves that they actually have a pretty good life, right? Compare it to something worse or a more painful moment. What I like to tell my students or my clients is I want you just to think about how far you've come, because sometimes they forget how far they've actually come. What have they done? What have they been successful with? So yeah, that's a hard one that I have because a lot of times it'll want you to like look at those less fortunate, I mean, which we should do, but just basically comparing like how far you've come or how well you're doing. Those are kind of the things to focus on. Emotions, again, checking in with your emotions, replace those negative ones with positive. Feeling sad, watch something funny. I tell them try to do the opposite, right? For some kids, like if they're angry, listening to angry music helps. That would not work for me, but it may work for them. But trying to do something of the opposite and acknowledging those emotions, right? Again, those big emotions they do not like, but acknowledging what they're feeling. Pushing it away, writing down their emotions and then get rid of it. I think I talked to you about this last time, but if you have a chronic kiddo that has anxiety, make an anxiety time. All right, you can worry about all your worries from 4:30 to 5. Okay, so every time you have an anxiety that comes up, put it on a sticky note. You think about it from 4:30 to 5 when you get home. Because by the time they get home and they start looking at them, half the things they don't even care about anymore. But it kind of shows them, oh, that wasn't a big deal. I could handle it on my own. And then after you've done like 30 minutes, make it 15 that they get to worry about it. But that's just a strategy. The thoughts, you have more control over your thoughts than you think. I always say, you don't pick the first thought, but you can pick the second. Okay, so a thought comes into your head, oh my gosh, I'm gonna fail that test. That's your first thought. You don't have control of that one, you have control over the next one. I may not fail the test, because actually I've studied really hard and I feel that I know 75% of it. Okay, what's your next thought? And then sensations, use your physical sensations to distract you from the strong emotion. Like ice in your hands, take a cold shower, take a hot shower. Eat a sour something, shock your system. So that's your sensations. You're using your 5 senses. Again, you can go out in the rain or the snow, or you can walk with your shoes on the grass. Listen to very loud music. smell your favorite candle, something that involves those 5 sensations. So that was a really quick thing. But if they are having a really hard time, if we can teach our kids to go to something else, especially if we can teach them not to just go to this to numb out, this will make them so much more aware of like what actually is going on within their body. Emotions are like your check engine light in your car. It's telling you something's going on. It's not bad, but what's going on? What do we need to figure out? So again, our kids need us to stay regulated. What we want to protect, but we need to show them that we can love, like we always say, love them through. We can love them through those big emotions. Okay. I will keep that one. Well, I will say one of the things that a lot of our students struggle with is we don't know what to do when our kids have those big emotions, and it's scary as parents. But just sitting through with them and saying, you know what, it is okay. It is okay that you are having this emotion. How can you and I work through it, or what are you going to do when I'm not here to help you through it? So these are some of the references, and again, y'all will get this, so you can click on these. This is the book. It's so good. We're doing a book study in it, but it will make you reevaluate everything you do, and it's like how much you want your kids to have a phone. But it just talks about what it is. Actually, it has rewired our kiddos' brains. But that's that. And I went really fast. But there is my email. You are always free to email me if you have any questions. Or if you ever need, like I said, extra resources, you're like, can you send me more on that distress tolerance? I love doing stuff like that. So I know I talked really quick. Are there any questions, though, that you may have, or thoughts, anything? Okay, y'all have homework. Your homework is to let your kids sit in it. What if they don't make a great score on their SAT? What can they learn the next time? You know, I know it's so hard. It's so hard, but we can do it.